She only meant to rest for a moment, just one stolen breath on the forbidden Luna's bed after scrubbing blood and mud until her hands cracked. But when the mattress wrapped around her like living magic and the Alpha himself couldn't pull her free, the entire pack realized the ancient enchantment had chosen someone, and it wasn't who anyone expected. Welcome back to my channel, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Lyria's knees hit the stone floor for the 47th time that night. She'd stopped counting after 30, but her body kept a tally in aches and bruises that would purple by morning. The great hall reeked of wine, roasted meat, and the particular musk that clung to wolves after they'd spent hours in their other forms, earthy and wild, like forest floors after rain. The nobles had left hours ago, stumbling out with full bellies and empty minds, but their mess remained. Mud tracked across marble that had taken her 3 days to polish. Wine stains on tapestries older than the kingdom itself. And near the eastern wall, deep claw marks gouged into the plaster where some drunken warrior had demonstrated his fighting prowess. Training accident, he'd claimed, grinning with too many teeth. Lyria had smiled and nodded because that's what Omegas did. They smiled. They nodded. They cleaned up after wolves who could tear them apart with a thought. She dunked her rag into the bucket. The water had gone from clear to murky brown hours ago, and scrubbed at a particularly stubborn stain. Her arms trembled. Her back screamed. Every muscle in her body begged her to stop, to rest, to simply collapse and let the stone cradle her until dawn. But she couldn't. Omegas who left work unfinished found themselves without work at all. And without work came hunger. Without hunger came, well, she tried not to think about what came after that. Almost done, she whispered to herself, her voice echoing in the cavernous hall. Just a little more. The lie tasted bitter. She wasn't almost done. The entrance hall still needed sweeping. The kitchens required another pass. And someone, moon above, she didn't know who, had somehow managed to get mud on the ceiling. A distant clock chimed. 3 bells past midnight. Lyria's eyes burned. She blinked hard, trying to force them to focus, but exhaustion had wrapped around her mind like fog. Her thoughts moved slowly, thick and sluggish, each one requiring more effort than the last. She needed to finish. Had to finish. But her body had other plans. When she stood, her legs buckled. She caught herself on a chair, gripping the carved wood until her knuckles went white. The room tilted slightly, then righted itself. Her heart hammered in her chest, too fast, too loud, like it was trying to escape her ribs. "I'm fine," she told the empty hall. "Perfectly fine." Another lie. She was collecting them tonight like river stones. Lyria forced herself forward, one step, then another. The entrance hall lay beyond the great hall, through a corridor lined with portraits of past alphas. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her as she walked, judging, assessing, finding her lacking. She'd scrubbed these floors on her first day at the palace. 6 years ago now. She'd been 12, small even for an Omega, with hands too soft for the work and a heart still foolish enough to hope. The head housekeeper had looked her up and down with eyes like flint. "You'll do," she'd said. "Not well. Not wonderfully. Just do." And Lyria had done. Every day since. Scrubbing, polishing, fetching, cleaning. Invisible until someone needed her. Forgotten the moment the task was complete. The corridor seemed longer tonight. Or maybe her legs had simply grown shorter. Either way, each step felt like wading through honey. She passed the weapons hall. The library. The council chambers with their heavy oak doors. And then, the Luna's chamber. Lyria stopped. She hadn't meant to. Hadn't planned to. But her traitorous feet had carried her here anyway, drawn by something she couldn't name. Curiosity, maybe. Or exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. The doors stood open. Not unusual. The Alpha didn't believe in locks or boundaries, claimed they made wolves weak and dependent. But the chamber beyond. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows, painting everything in silver and shadow. The room was smaller than she'd imagined, though still 3 times the size of the servants' quarters. Tapestries covered the walls, depicting scenes from the pack's history, the first alpha claiming his territory, the moon goddess blessing the bloodline, the great war against the rogues from the eastern mountains. But none of that held her attention. The bed commanded the room like a throne commands a hall. It was massive, carved from wood so dark it looked black in the moonlight, with posts that spiraled toward the ceiling like ancient trees reaching for the sky. The mattress sat high off the ground, covered in furs and silks that seemed to glow with their own internal light. Blue, soft and subtle, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The Luna's bed. Every Omega in the palace knew the stories. How it had belonged to the first Luna, a woman whose magic had been so powerful she'd woven it into the very stones of the kingdom. How that magic had settled into the bed over centuries, transforming it into something more than furniture. Something alive. Something aware. The Omegas whispered that the bed would only accept the true Luna. That it would reject anyone else who dared to touch it. That it knew, somehow, who belonged and who didn't. Lyria had never been foolish enough to believe the stories. Until tonight. She stood in the doorway, swaying slightly, and the bed seemed to notice her. The blue glow brightened, just a fraction. The air in the chamber shifted, growing warmer, more welcoming. Inviting. No, Lyria whispered. Absolutely not. She turned to leave. Her legs refused to move. Exhaustion had sunk its claws deep, dragging her down, drowning her in a weariness so complete she could barely remember what it felt like to be rested. Her vision blurred. The hallway behind her seemed impossibly far, like looking at the world through water. Just one moment. Just one breath. She looked back at the bed. It practically glowed now, warm and soft and so unbearably tempting. Her entire body ached. Her bones felt like lead. And the bed, the forbidden, magical, absolutely off-limits bed, looked like the answer to every prayer she'd never dared to speak aloud. I'll only sit, she told herself, her voice barely a whisper. Not sleep. Just rest. For a moment. The lie felt comfortable this time. Familiar. Like an old blanket she could wrap around her guilt. Lyria stepped into the chamber. The door didn't close behind her. No locks clicked. No warning sounded. The world simply held its breath as she crossed the stone floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. She reached the bed. Her hand trembled as she reached out, fingertips brushing the silk sheets. They felt impossibly soft, like touching clouds, like holding moonlight. The fabric seemed to welcome her touch, warming beneath her fingers. The bedside. Lyria froze. She'd imagined it. Had to have imagined it. Beds didn't sigh. They didn't breathe. They didn't. Her knees buckled. She fell forward, sprawling across the mattress, and the world exploded. Magic erupted around her, cool blue light racing up her arms, curling around her waist, sinking into her skin like roots finding soil. The bed molded to her shape instantly, perfectly, as if it had been waiting centuries for exactly her dimensions. The mattress rose beneath her, cradling her body, supporting her in ways she hadn't known she needed supporting. And it felt right. Terrifyingly, impossibly, undeniably right. Lyria tried to push herself up, tried to scramble away, but the bed held her gently, firmly, like a mother holds a child who's finally come home. The blue light grew brighter, wrapping around her in threads of pure magic that hummed with ancient power. Her eyes grew heavy. No, she whispered, but the word had no strength behind it. I can't. I shouldn't. The bed purred. An actual purr, deep and satisfied, vibrating through the mattress and into her bones. Warmth flooded through her. Safety. Comfort. For the first time in 6 years, maybe in her entire life, Lyria felt protected. Her eyes closed. The last thing she saw before exhaustion claimed her was the blue light growing brighter, brighter, until the entire chamber glowed like a fallen star. And the last thing she felt was the bed tightening around her, not trapping, but claiming. She belonged here. The ancient magic knew it. And soon, the entire pack would too. Alpha Henry Thornridge didn't sleep. Not because he couldn't, though leading a pack of 300 wolves, managing alliances with neighboring territories, and preventing his beta from accidentally starting wars did require a certain level of perpetual vigilance. No, Henry didn't sleep because every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. His mate. Dead these past 2 years, taken by a fever that had swept through the southern provinces like wildfire. The healers had tried everything, herbs, magic, prayers to the moon goddess herself. Nothing had worked. Luna Celeste had died in his arms on a morning that smelled of rain and grief. And the bed, that cursed, magical, two-aware bed, had stopped glowing the moment her heart stopped beating. It had been dark ever since. Cold. Empty. Just like him. Henry stood at his window, watching the moon slide across the sky. His chambers were on the opposite side of the palace from the Luna's quarters. He'd moved there the day after the funeral, unable to bear the sight of that bed, unable to face the physical proof that his mate was gone and would never return. The pack whispered about it, of course. Whispered that he should take another Luna, that the kingdom needed a queen, that 2 years was long enough to mourn. They were wrong. 2 years wasn't nearly long enough. 2 centuries wouldn't be enough. A knock interrupted his brooding. "Enter," he called, not bothering to turn from the window. The door opened. His beta, Rowan, stepped inside with the particular careful energy of someone approaching a wounded predator. "Smart man." "Alpha," Rowan said quietly. "We have a situation." Henry's jaw tightened. "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires you to see it for yourself." "Rowan." Henry finally turned, fixing his beta with a look that had made grown warriors whimper. "It's past 3 in the morning. Unless the palace is on fire or we're under attack, I suggest you handle it yourself. It's about the Luna's chamber." Everything in Henry went still. The Luna's chamber. The room he'd avoided for 2 years. The room that held nothing but memory sharp enough to cut. What about it? His voice had gone flat, dangerous. Rowan shifted his weight, uncomfortable in a way Henry had rarely seen. "There's someone in the bed." Silence stretched between them, heavy and thick. "What did you just say?" Henry asked softly. "Someone is in the Luna's bed. One of the servants found her, said the entire chamber is glowing blue." "Like." Rowan swallowed. "Like it used to. When your mate was alive." Henry moved before he'd consciously decided to move. He swept past Rowan, through the doorway, down the corridor with his beta scrambling to keep up. His heart hammered against his ribs, fury and something else, something he didn't want to examine. How dare someone defile Celeste's bed? How dare they touch something sacred, something that belonged to? He rounded the corner and stopped dead. Light spilled from the Luna's chamber like liquid moonlight. Blue and bright and alive, pulsing with the same rhythm Henry remembered from the early days of his mating, when Celeste had first lain in that bed and the ancient magic had recognized her as queen. A crowd had gathered. Servants, mostly, huddled in the corridor with wide eyes and whispered prayers. They parted for him instantly, pressing themselves against the walls as he passed. Henry stepped into the chamber and forgot how to breathe. The bed blazed with light, brighter than he'd ever seen it, even with Celeste. Magic crackled through the air like summer lightning, coating everything in shades of blue and silver. And in the center of it all, cradled by the mattress like something precious. An omega. Small. Thin. Wearing a servant's rough-spun dress, stained with dirt and gods knew what else. Her dark hair spread across the pillows in tangled waves. Her face was turned toward the moonlight, peaceful in sleep, and even from the doorway Henry could see the exhaustion carved into her features. The bed had molded to her shape, wrapped around her, claimed her. And Henry's wolf, the beast that lived beneath his skin, the part of him that was more animal than man. It recognized her. "Moon above," Rowan whispered from behind him. "Is that?" "Lyria," someone murmured. "The cleaning girl. The Omega who does the Great Haul." "Why would she?" "Look at the bed. It's chosen her. But she's just an Omega. She can't be." "Enough." Henry's voice cracked through the whispers like a whip. The servants fell silent immediately, hunching their shoulders as his dominance rolled over them in waves. He approached the bed slowly, each step measured, controlled. His hands had curled into fists without his permission. His wolf paced behind his eyes, agitated and confused and interested in ways that made Henry's chest tighten. This was wrong. The bed had belonged to Celeste. It had loved Celeste. It couldn't just choose someone else. Some random Omega who. He reached the bedside and looked down. She was younger than he'd thought. 18, maybe 19. Her hands were rough, calloused from work, with old scars across the knuckles. A healing bruise darkened her left cheekbone. Her breathing came slow and steady, lost in dreams that flickered behind her closed eyelids. Beautiful, his wolf whispered. Ours. Henry shoved the thought away violently. Wake her, he ordered. His voice came out rougher than intended. Rowan moved forward, reaching for the girl's shoulder. The bed snarled. Blue lightning erupted from the mattress, crackling across Rowan's hand. The beta jerked back with a curse, shaking his fingers. The smell of singed hair filled the chamber. What in the Rowan stared at the bed in disbelief. It attacked me. It's protecting her, someone whispered. Henry's jaw clenched so hard he heard his teeth grind. Move, he said, pushing Rowan aside. If the bed wanted to play protective nursemaid, fine. But he was the alpha, the ruler of this pack and this kingdom. And no piece of enchanted furniture, no matter how ancient or powerful, was going to keep him from. He reached for Lyria. Lightning exploded across his palms. Pain shot up his arms, sharp, electric, wrong. The bed's magic lashed at him like living whips, driving him back, warning him away. The blue light flared brighter, more aggressive, wrapping around the Omega in layers of protective energy. Mine, the magic seemed to say. Not yours. Mine. Henry stumbled backward, shock cutting through his anger. The bed had never rejected him before. Even after Celeste's death, it had allowed him near, had let him sit on its edge during those first terrible weeks when grief had made breathing feel impossible. But now it defended this slip of a girl like she was the most precious thing in existence. She's been chosen, Rowan said quietly. The bed recognizes her. As what? Henry snapped. She's an Omega. A servant. She's not, he couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't speak the word that burned in his throat. Luna. She couldn't be Luna. The servants had crowded into the doorway now, drawn by the spectacle. Henry could feel their eyes on him, judging, assessing, wondering what their alpha would do when confronted with impossible magic. He straightened to his full height, forcing his expression into neutrality even as his mind raced. How long has she been here? I found her perhaps 20 minutes ago, Alpha, said one of the serving women, older, gray-haired, with kind eyes. I was checking that the halls were clean for the morning when I saw the light. At first I thought, forgive me, but I thought perhaps Luna Celeste had. She trailed off, embarrassed. Come back to life? Henry finished coldly. She hasn't. No, Alpha. Of course not. The woman bowed her head. But the bed, it hasn't glowed like this since Celeste died. The words hung unspoken between them. Henry turned back to the bed, to the sleeping Omega who'd somehow triggered ancient magic that had been dormant for 2 years. In sleep, she looked fragile. Breakable. Nothing like the powerful Luna the bed should have chosen. Unless. Has anyone checked if she's injured? He asked abruptly. Ill? She looks exhausted, the older servant offered. I've seen her working day and night this past week. The girl barely rests. And you let her continue? Henry's voice dropped dangerously low. The servant paled. She's an Omega Alpha. We don't usually. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Omegas weren't coddled in the pack. They worked until the work was done, and if that meant working themselves into exhaustion, well, that was simply the way of things. Henry had never questioned it before. Looking at Lyria now, small and worn and utterly vulnerable, something uncomfortable twisted in his chest. Leave us, he ordered. Alpha. Rowan looked uncertain. All of you. Out. Now. They fled. Even Rowan, loyal to the end, knew better than to argue when Henry used that tone. The beta cast one last concerned look at the glowing bed before disappearing into the corridor. Silence settled over the chamber. Henry stood alone with the sleeping Omega and the bed that had chosen her. "What are you playing at?" he asked the bed quietly. "What game is this?" The bed, naturally, didn't answer. It simply continued its gentle glowing, cradling Lyria like something infinitely precious. Henry moved closer, carefully this time, ready to jerk back if the lightning returned. But the magic seemed calmer now, less aggressive. It watched him, somehow, impossibly. The bed watched him, assessing whether he posed a threat. He stopped at the edge of the mattress, close enough now to see the faint flutter of Lyria's pulse in her throat. Close enough to smell her scent beneath the soap and sweat, something soft, like wild roses after rain. His wolf stirred again. Interested. Curious. Wanting. "No," Henry said firmly, though whether he was speaking to the wolf or himself, he wasn't sure. This changed nothing. The bed's choice meant nothing. Magic could be wrong. Had been wrong before. Just because some ancient enchantment decided this random Omega belonged in the Luna's chambers didn't mean. Lyria's eyes snapped open. Henry froze. Her eyes glowed white. Pure white, bright as stars, with no iris or pupil visible. Power radiated from her in waves, ancient, primal, vast. When she looked at him, Henry felt the full weight of something far older than kingdoms or packs or the petty concerns of mortal wolves. "Alpha," she whispered, and her voice wasn't her own. It echoed with 1,000 other voices, layered and infinite. "The Luna is coming." The chamber trembled. Magic exploded outward. And Henry's world tilted on its axis as he realized with stunning, terrible clarity. The bed hadn't chosen a Luna. It had chosen a warning. The magic hit Henry like a physical blow. Blue light erupted from the bed in waves, rolling across the floor, climbing the walls, spreading like wildfire through stone and tapestry. The windows rattled. The portraits of past alphas swayed on their hooks. And at the center of it all, Lyria rose, not standing, but floating, suspended above the mattress by threads of pure magical energy. Her eyes still glowed white. Her hair lifted around her face as if caught in an invisible wind. When she spoke, that chorus of ancient voices made the air itself vibrate. "The Luna is coming. The true Luna. The last Luna." Henry's wolf howled inside him, torn between submission and aggression. Every instinct screamed at him to either bow or attack, and he couldn't decide which would be more dangerous. "What are you?" he demanded, forcing his voice steady even as his heart tried to punch through his ribs. "What's happened to her?" The thing wearing Lyria's face tilted its head, studying him with those terrible, star-bright eyes. "She is the key. The catalyst. The one who awakens what has slept too long." "That's not an answer." "The bed knows." The voices echoed, overlapping, male and female, and something beyond either. The bed has always known. It waited. Centuries it waited. For this moment. For her. Magic pulsed outward again, stronger this time. Henry staggered back a step, his boots scraping against stone. The ancient power pressed against him, testing him, weighing him with the casual indifference of a god examining an insect. "What Luna?" he managed. "My mate is dead." "There is no." "Your mate sleeps with the earth and the worms," the voices said, not cruel, simply factual. "But the Luna, the first Luna, the mother of your bloodline, the woman who wove her magic into these walls, she is coming." And this one, the glowing figure gestured to itself with hands that trailed light, "will be the bridge." Henry's mind raced, trying to make sense of impossible words. The first Luna died 1,000 years ago. Death is not always the end. He stopped. Took a breath. Forced his alpha dominance down, buried it beneath rationality and desperate confusion. "What do you want with her?" "With Lyria." For the first time, something like warmth entered those otherworldly voices. "Want? We need her. She has the gift. The blood. The sacrifice carved into her bones through lifetimes of service. She's an Omega. A servant. She is exactly what she must be." The magic flared brighter, and suddenly roots, actual roots, glowing blue and pulsing with life, erupted from the bed's legs. They spread across the floor like seeking fingers, crawling toward Henry with unsettling purpose. "And you, Alpha?" You who carry the first alpha's blood. You who lead this pack that has forgotten its purpose. You will protect her. It wasn't a request. Henry's hands curled into fists. I protect all my pack members. No. The word cracked like thunder. You tolerate them. You command them. You use them. But this one, this Omega who cleaned your halls while her hands bled, who scrubbed stone until her knees bruised, who served without complaint or hope of reward, you will protect her. Or everything your ancestors built will crumble to dust. The roots reached his feet. Henry forced himself not to move, not to show fear, even as the glowing tendrils wrapped around his ankles like shackles. Why her? He asked quietly. Of all the wolves in this kingdom, why this girl? The figure that was and wasn't Lyria smiled. It was a sad smile, ancient and weary. Because she laid in the bed. Because exhaustion drove her to rest where she should not have rested. Because in her moment of greatest vulnerability, she trusted, even unknowingly, the magic to hold her. The roots climbed higher, wrapping around Henry's legs, his waist, spreading across his chest. Not painful, but inescapable. Binding him to something he didn't understand. The bed chooses based on worthiness, the voices continued. Not power. Not rank. Not the symbols and status your kind have learned to value. Worthiness of heart. Of spirit. Of the quiet strength that endures when everything else has failed. Henry looked at Lyria, truly looked at her for perhaps the first time. Saw the calluses on her hands. The scar across her knuckles. The too-thin wrists and the exhaustion carved into her sleeping face. Saw a girl who'd worked herself nearly to death and still woke each morning to work again. She'll need protection, he said slowly. The pack will question this. Challenge it. Yes. They'll say she's not worthy of the Luna's chamber. That an Omega can't. Yes. They might try to hurt her. The voices went cold. Deadly. Yes. Which is why you will ensure they do not succeed. The roots tightened, not painful, but firm. A promise. A threat. A binding made of magic older than kingdoms. And if I refuse? Henry asked, though he already knew the answer. Then the pack falls. The bloodline ends. And the Luna, the true Luna, the one who sleeps beneath stone and memory, will wake to a kingdom of ashes. The glowing figure leaned forward, close enough that Henry could feel the heat of ancient power radiating from it. Choose, Alpha. Protect this girl and perhaps save everything. Or cling to your pride, your prejudices, your comfortable certainty that Omegas exist only to serve, and watch as the world your ancestors built burns. Silence hung between them, heavy as mountains. Henry thought of Celeste. Of the Luna he'd loved and lost. Of the empty bed that had glowed for her and no one else. Until tonight. Until Lyria. Fine, he said quietly. I'll protect her. The voices, all of them, that entire chorus of ancient power, sighed in relief. The roots released him, retreating back into the bed's legs. The blue light dimmed, softening from blinding to merely bright. Swear it, the voices commanded. Swear on your bloodline. On your wolf. On everything you are and everything you will be. Henry straightened, meeting those glowing eyes directly. I swear on my bloodline, on my wolf, and on my honor as Alpha, I will protect Lyria. From all threats. Until the Luna comes, or until my dying breath. Whichever happens first. The magic sang. Power rushed through him, accepting his oath, sealing it, making it as binding as any mating bond. Henry felt it lock into place in his chest, right beside his heart, an iron chain he'd forged himself. Good, the voices whispered, and now they sounded tired. Satisfied, but tired. Good. The key is safe. The bridge is protected. Now, we rest. The light flickered. Lyria dropped. Henry caught her before conscious thought engaged, his alpha reflexes moving him forward in a blur. She fell into his arms like a puppet with cut strings suddenly, completely human again. The white light faded from her eyes, returning them to their natural warm brown. Her head lolled against his chest. Unconscious. Just a girl again. No ancient magic, no otherworldly voices. Just an exhausted Omega who weighed almost nothing and smelled like wild roses after rain. Henry stood there, holding her, as the chamber's glow dimmed to a soft pulse. The bed had released her, satisfied now that she'd served her purpose. The magic settled back into stone and wood, returning to its centuries-long sleep. "What have I agreed to?" Henry murmured to the empty room. The bed, naturally, didn't answer. Behind him, the door burst open. Rowan rushed in, followed by a handful of warriors, all of them armed and ready for battle. They stopped dead at the sight of their alpha holding an unconscious Omega, while magical roots retreated into enchanted furniture. "Is she?" Rowan couldn't seem to finish the question. "Alive. Unconscious." Henry looked down at Lyria's face, peaceful now in genuine sleep. "And apparently the most important person in the kingdom." "I'm sorry, what?" Henry shifted his grip on Lyria, cradling her more securely. She mumbled something incoherent and burrowed closer to his chest, seeking warmth. His wolf purred, actually purred, and Henry firmly told it to shut up. "Prepare the Luna's chambers," he ordered. "Lyria will be staying here." The warriors exchanged glances. One of them, a younger wolf named Finn, cleared his throat nervously. "Alpha, she's an Omega. We can't just." "She was chosen by the bed," Henry said flatly. "Claimed by magic that predates this kingdom. Magic that just informed me, in no uncertain terms, that her survival is critical to the pack's survival." He fixed Finn with a look that had made grown men whimper. "Unless you'd like to argue with thousand-year-old enchantments about who belongs in the Luna's quarters?" Finn wisely remained silent. "Rowan." Henry turned to his beta. "Summon the healers. I want her examined, discreetly. No one speaks of what happened here tonight. Not yet. Not until we understand what we're dealing with." "Understood." Rowan's eyes flicked to Lyria, then back to Henry. "And what are we dealing with exactly?" Henry looked at the bed, at the faint blue glow that still pulsed through its wood like a heartbeat. At the Omega in his arms who'd somehow become the most valuable and most vulnerable member of his pack. "Honestly," he sighed, "I have absolutely no idea." But he'd sworn an oath, made a binding promise to ancient magic and older gods. And Alpha Henry Thornridge never broke his word. Even when that word meant protecting a girl the entire pack would want to reject. Even when protecting her might cost him everything he had left. "Move," he ordered, striding toward the door with Lyria still cradled against his chest. "And someone find me every book we have on the First Luna. Every story. Every scrap of legend or history. If ancient magic thinks we need to prepare for her return, I want to know exactly what we're preparing for." The warriors scattered, rushing to obey. Rowan fell into step beside Henry as they moved through the corridors. "You really think the First Luna is coming back? That's not possible. She's been dead for—" "I think," Henry interrupted quietly, "that tonight I watched a servant girl channel power that made my wolf want to submit. I think the bed, which hasn't responded to anyone in 2 years, just claimed her as if she were the moon goddess herself. And I think something very old and very dangerous just woke up in my palace." He looked down at Lyria again. She'd stopped shivering, her breathing deep and steady. In sleep, she looked painfully young. Innocent. Nothing like a magical key or a bridge to ancient power. Just a girl who'd been too tired to remember her place. "So yes," Henry said softly. "I think we need to prepare. Because whether we understand it or not, whether we believe it or not, something is coming." The Luna's bed pulsed with agreement. And in Henry's arms, Lyria dreamed of things she wouldn't remember when she woke. Dreams of moonlight and magic. Dreams of a woman with stars in her hair and sorrow in her eyes. Dreams of a Luna who'd been sleeping for 1,000 years and was finally ready to come home. Lyria woke to softness. Not the usual kind, not the thin, scratchy blanket in the servants' quarters or the hard pallet that left her back aching every morning. This was genuine softness. Silk against her cheek. Furs beneath her fingers. A mattress that cradled her body like she weighed nothing at all. She kept her eyes closed, afraid that opening them would shatter whatever dream had captured her. Because this had to be a dream. Had to be. The alternative, that she'd actually fallen asleep in the Luna's bed, that she'd committed an offense so severe it would probably get her thrown from the pack, was too terrifying to consider. Just a dream. Just exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. Any moment now, she'd wake on her pallet. The other Omegas would be stirring around her. The head housekeeper would be banging on the door, shouting about morning duties and lazy servants who. I know you're awake. Lyria's eyes snapped open. Alpha Henry Thornridge sat in a chair beside the bed, watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Not angry exactly. Not kind either. Something complicated and guarded, like he was looking at a puzzle he hadn't figured out how to solve. She bolted upright, or tried to. Her body protested immediately, every muscle screaming in complaint. She'd pushed too hard last night, worked too long, and now she was paying for it in aches that made even breathing painful. Easy. Henry's voice was surprisingly gentle. The healers said you're severely exhausted. Malnourished. Dehydrated. You've been working yourself into the ground. Lyria stared at him, her mind struggling to catch up. She was in the Luna's chamber. The Luna's chamber. And the Alpha, the actual, terrifying Alpha who could kill her with a thought, was sitting beside her bed like. I'm sorry, she blurted. I'm so sorry, Alpha. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I only meant to rest for a moment, I swear. I'll leave immediately. I'll accept whatever punishment. You're not being punished. She stopped mid-ramble. I'm not? No. Henry leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He wore simpler clothes than she'd ever seen him in, just a plain shirt and trousers, though even casual clothing couldn't hide the power in his frame. Lyria, do you remember what happened last night? She searched her memory. Remembered exhaustion. Remembered the bed calling to her like a siren song. Remembered falling onto it and feeling magic wrap around her like. Everything after that was fog. I fell asleep, she said slowly. On the Luna's bed. Which I shouldn't have done. Which was wrong and disrespectful and. The bed claimed you. Lyria's mouth snapped shut. Henry watched her, those sharp eyes missing nothing. The Luna's bed, the one that's been dark and dormant since my mate died, lit up the moment you touched it. It wrapped around you. Protected you. Refused to let anyone else near. That's not possible. And yet, it happened. He stood, pacing to the window. Morning sunlight streamed through the glass, painting him in gold and shadow. The bed chose you, Lyria. Magic that's been silent for 2 years suddenly roared to life. And then. He paused, his jaw tightening. Then you spoke with voices that weren't your own. Cold dread pooled in Lyria's stomach. What did I say? That you're the key. The bridge. That the first Luna, the woman who founded this kingdom, is coming back. Henry turned to face her. That my job is to keep you alive until she arrives. Lyria couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This was madness. Complete, impossible madness. Alpha, I'm just an Omega. I clean floors. I scrub pots. I can't be. I know. His voice was quiet. Almost kind. Believe me, I questioned it too. But the bed doesn't lie. Ancient magic doesn't make mistakes. He moved closer, stopping at the edge of the mattress. Whether we understand it or not, whether we like it or not, you've been chosen for something. And until we figure out what that something is, you're staying in these chambers. I can't stay here. The words burst out before she could stop them. This is the Luna's room. I'm nobody. The pack will, they'll think. They'll think what I tell them to think. Alpha dominance rolled off Henry in waves, filling the room with power that made her wolf instinctively lower its head. You're under my protection now. Direct protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. Lyria's hands twisted in the silk sheets. This was wrong. All of it. She didn't belong here, in this beautiful room with its enchanted bed and its view of the gardens. She belonged in the servants' quarters, in the kitchens, scrubbing and cleaning and making herself useful. I don't understand, she whispered. Why me? Henry's expression softened slightly. The magic said you have worthiness. Not power or rank, worthiness of heart. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could smell pine and winter on him. It said you've served without complaint or hope of reward. That you endured when everything else failed. That's just what Omegas do. Is it? He tilted his head, studying her. When was the last time you ate a full meal? Lyria blinked at the change of subject. Yesterday morning. Bread and… before that. The day before, I think. Maybe 2 days. She couldn't quite remember. Time blurred when you were exhausted. And when did you last sleep more than 4 hours? I don't. When, Lyria? She looked down at her hands. At the calluses and scars and the bruise darkening her knuckles from where she'd scraped them on stone. I sleep enough. That's not what I asked. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Lyria whispered, I don't remember sleeping more than 4 hours. Not in years. Henry's jaw clenched. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes, not directed at her, but at something else. Something she didn't understand. That ends now, he said firmly. You eat. You rest. You recover. Those are orders, Lyria. From your alpha. But the cleaning will be done by someone else. The Great Hall has a dozen other servants who can manage it. But I'm supposed to. You're supposed to survive. Henry's voice went quiet. Intense. Because apparently, the entire kingdom's survival depends on yours. So you will eat. You will rest. You will stay in these chambers and let yourself heal. Understood. Lyria wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that she couldn't just stop working, that Omegas who stopped being useful stopped being tolerated. But the alpha dominance in his voice made refusal impossible. Yes, Alpha, she murmured. Good. He stood, heading for the door. I'll have food sent up. Real food, not scraps. You'll eat all of it. Alpha. He paused, hand on the door frame. What happens if the Luna doesn't come? Lyria asked quietly. What happens if the magic was wrong, and I'm just a girl who fell asleep where she shouldn't have? Henry looked back at her, and for just a moment, she saw past the alpha, past the dominance and power. Saw a man who'd lost his mate and hadn't finished grieving. A man who was trying to make sense of magic he didn't understand. Then we figure it out together, he said simply. But until we know for certain, you're too valuable to risk. So please, Lyria, just let me protect you. He left before she could respond. Lyria sat in the enormous bed, surrounded by silk and furs and magic she didn't understand. Through the window, she could see the palace gardens stretching toward the forest. Could see servants moving between buildings, starting their morning routines. They'd be talking about her by now. Whispering. Wondering. Judging. An Omega in the Luna's chambers. An Omega who'd somehow triggered ancient magic and caught the Alpha's attention. They'd hate her for it. Fear her. Or worse, they'd dismiss her entirely, certain this was all some terrible mistake that would correct itself soon enough. Maybe they were right. Maybe the bed had made an error. Maybe the magic had confused exhaustion for worthiness, desperation for strength. But as she sat there, the bed seemed to pulse beneath her. Gentle. Warm. Welcoming. Like it knew exactly what it had done. And had no intention of taking it back. The food arrived an hour later. Not scraps. Not leftovers. A feast, bread still warm from the ovens, cheese and fruit, roasted meat that made her mouth water, and soup that smelled like heaven in a bowl. The servant who brought it was an older woman Lyria recognized from the kitchens. She set the tray down without meeting Lyria's eyes, her movements stiff and formal. The Alpha ordered you to eat everything, the woman said curtly. I'm to report back if you don't. Thank you, Lyria said softly. The woman nodded once and left without another word. Lyria stared at the food. More than she usually ate in 3 days, spread across a silver tray like she was someone important. Someone worth feeding. Her stomach growled, reminding her that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. She ate. Moon above, she ate until her stomach hurt and her eyes watered. Every bite felt like a small rebellion against the voice in her head that whispered she didn't deserve this, wasn't worthy of this, should leave it for someone more important. But the Alpha had given her orders. And she'd always been good at following orders. By the time she finished, the sun had climbed higher in the sky. Lyria set the empty tray aside and lay back against the pillows, intending only to rest her eyes for a moment. She fell asleep instantly, and dreamed of a woman with stars in her hair. The woman stood in a garden that didn't exist, or didn't exist yet. Trees grew in impossible patterns, their branches weaving together overhead. Flowers bloomed in colors Lyria had no names for. And at the center of it all, a fountain bubbled with water that glowed like moonlight. The woman turned, and Lyria's breath caught. She was beautiful. Devastatingly, impossibly beautiful. Not in the way mortals were beautiful, but in the way gods and legends and ancient stories were beautiful. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. Her eyes held depths that could swallow kingdoms. "You're awake," the woman said, and her voice was the same chorus Lyria had heard, or thought she'd heard, in fragments of memory. "Finally. It took you long enough." "I don't understand," Lyria whispered. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. It was a sad smile. "Lonely. I am the first Luna, the mother of this kingdom. The one who slept when she should have ruled, and now wakes when everything she built stands on the edge of ruin." She moved closer, and Lyria realized the woman wasn't quite solid. She flickered at the edges, like candlelight in a draft. "You're dead," Lyria said. "I was. For 1,000 years, I was. But death isn't always permanent, child. Not when magic runs deep enough. Not when the kingdom calls its queen back from beyond the veil." The woman reached out, and though her hand passed through Lyria's shoulder like smoke, Lyria still felt it cold and warm at once, power and gentleness intertwined. "The bed chose you," the woman continued. "Not as Luna, you're not ready for that crown, and I'm not ready to pass it on. But as the key. The one who opens the door. The one who stands between death and life and calls me home." "I don't know how to do that," Lyria said desperately. "I don't know how to call anyone home. I'm just an omega who cleaned until her hands bled," the woman interrupted gently. "Just a girl who served without asking for anything in return. Just a heart so pure that ancient magic recognized it instantly." She cupped Lyria's face with insubstantial hands. "You think you're nothing, child. But I see what you are. What you can become. The bridge between old magic and new. The catalyst that will wake what has slept too long. What if I fail? Then we all fail. The kingdom falls. The pack scatters. And the darkness that I sealed away 1,000 years ago breaks free to consume everything." The woman's eyes held infinite sorrow. No pressure, of course. Despite everything, despite the impossibility and the terror and the complete insanity of this moment, Lyria laughed. It was a small, broken sound, but it was real. The woman smiled. "There. That's better. You'll need that humor for what's coming." "What is coming?" "Me. Slowly, carefully, piece by piece. Every time you sleep in that bed, I grow stronger. Every time the magic pulses, I pull myself closer to the living world." She began to fade, her form growing more transparent. "But there are others who don't want me to return. Others who benefit from my absence. They'll come for you, Lyria. They'll try to break the bridge before it's fully formed. The Alpha said he'd protect me." "Henry." The woman's smile turned fond. "Yes. He carries his ancestors' blood, the first Alpha's strength and stubborn honor. He'll protect you. But you must protect yourself too. Learn to fight. Learn to survive. Learn to be more than what they made you." She was almost gone now, just a whisper of starlight and shadow. "Wait," Lyria called. "I don't even know your name." The woman's laugh echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. "My name was lost to time, child. Buried with bones and memories. But you can call me what I was. What I'll be again." She faded completely, leaving only her final words hanging in the dream garden like morning mist. "Luna Moonshadow. And I'm coming home." Lyria jerked awake, gasping. The chamber was dark. Evening had fallen while she slept. And standing by the window, silhouetted against the twilight, was Alpha Henry. He turned when he heard her move. Bad dream. Lyria's heart still raced. "I saw her. The first Luna. Luna Moonshadow. She spoke to me." Henry went very still. "What did she say?" "That she's coming back. Piece by piece, through the bed's magic." Lyria pushed herself up, the furs sliding off her shoulders. "And that others will try to stop her. Will try to stop me." Henry crossed the room in 3 long strides. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could see the concern carved into his features. "Then we'll be ready," he said firmly. "Starting tomorrow, you begin training. Training, combat, defense, basic survival skills." His eyes held hers. "You said you're just an Omega who cleans floors. That ends now. If you're the key to bringing back the first Luna, then you need to be strong enough to survive what's coming." Lyria wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that she'd never held a weapon, never thrown a punch, never been anything but useful and obedient and small. But something had shifted inside her while she slept. Luna Moonshadow had called her pure of heart. Had chosen her, not for what she was, but for who she could become. Maybe it was time to find out who that was. "Okay," Lyria said softly. "Teach me." Henry smiled, a real smile, the first she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. "Good. We start at dawn." He stood to leave, then paused. "And Lyria? The dream you had, write down everything you remember. Every word. Every detail. If Luna Moonshadow is reaching out through your sleep, we need to document it all." "Yes, Alpha." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Lyria sat in the growing darkness, listening to the bed pulse gently beneath her. Outside, the moon rose over the forest, full and bright and watching. And somewhere between sleep and waking, between death and life, Luna Moonshadow smiled. Her key had been found. Her bridge had been built. Now all that remained was the crossing. And the battle that would come with it. Dawn came too early and far too bright. Lyria woke to someone pounding on her door, not gently, but with the kind of aggressive enthusiasm that suggested they were enjoying it. She stumbled out of bed, still wearing the same servant's dress from 2 days ago, and pulled open the door to find a woman who looked like she could wrestle bears for fun. "You're the key." The woman looked her up and down with obvious skepticism. She was tall, muscular, with scars crossing her arms and a warrior stance that screamed danger. "Moon above, you're tiny." Lyria blinked sleep from her eyes. "I'm sorry, who?" "Kira. Head of the Alpha's guard. I've been ordered to train you." She pushed past Lyria into the chamber, moving with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about permission. "We start in 10 minutes. Change into something you can move in." "I don't have anything." Kira tossed a bundle of clothes at her. "Now you do. Move." The warrior left, closing the door firmly behind her. Lyria stood there, holding the bundle, trying to process what had just happened. Training. Combat training. Her, an Omega who'd never thrown a punch in her life, learning to fight. This was insane. But the Alpha had ordered it. And Luna Moonshadow's warning still echoed in her mind. "They'll come for you." She changed quickly, pulling on the soft leather trousers and tunic Kira had provided. They fit surprisingly well. Someone had guessed her size accurately. The boots were sturdy, made for running and fighting, so different from the worn slippers she usually wore. When she caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not an Omega servant. Not anymore. Someone else. Someone who might, possibly, maybe be worth protecting. 10 minutes later, she met Kira in the training yard. The space was empty this early. Most warriors didn't train until after breakfast. But Kira clearly believed in private lessons, away from eyes that would judge and mouths that would gossip. "First rule," Kira said, circling Lyria like a predator assessing prey. "Forget everything you think you know about being an Omega. I don't understand. You've been taught to be small, submissive, unthreatening." Kira stopped in front of her. "That ends now. You want to survive what's coming? You need to be dangerous." Lyria's wolf stirred nervously. Everything in her upbringing, her training, her entire existence had been about being the opposite of dangerous. "I don't think I can. Can't or won't." Kira's eyes were sharp. "There's a difference." Silence hung between them. Finally, Lyria whispered, "Won't. I'm afraid that if I stop being small, if I take up space, if I become something more, they'll hurt me worse than if I'd just stayed quiet." Kira's expression softened slightly. "They might. Probably will, actually. Change scares people, especially when it challenges the order they've built their comfort on." She moved closer. "But here's what you need to understand. They're going to hurt you anyway. At least this way, you can hurt them back. The words hit like a physical blow. They were going to hurt her anyway. Of course they were. The pack already viewed her with suspicion. An Omega in the Luna's chambers. An Omega claiming ancient magic and the Alpha's protection. They'd resent her for it. Fear her for it. And fear turned to violence faster than mercy turned to kindness. Show me, Lyria said quietly. Show me how to fight back. Kira's smile was sharp as broken glass. Now we're talking. The next 2 hours were brutal. Kira didn't believe in gentle introductions or gradual learning. She taught through demonstration and immediate practice, showing Lyria a move, then attacking so Lyria had to use it or get hurt. Wolves respect strength, Kira explained, helping Lyria up after she'd been knocked down for the 5th time. Not just physical strength, mental strength. The strength to stand up after being knocked down. To keep fighting when every instinct says quit. Lyria spat blood from her split lip. Is this how you trained everyone? No. I'm going easy on you. At Lyria's incredulous look, Kira laughed. I'm serious. Usually, I'd have knocked you unconscious by now. But the Alpha was very clear, return you alive and somewhat functional. How thoughtful. He's protecting you. Whether you see it or not. Kira tossed her a water skin. The pack is already talking. Whispering. Some want you gone. Others want to test you, see if you're really worth the Alpha's attention. This training? It's not just about survival. It's about proving you deserve to be here. Lyria drank deeply, the cool water soothing her raw throat. What if I can't prove it? Then you'll die, probably. Kira said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. But I don't think you will. Why not? Because you're still standing. Kira gestured to Lyria's battered form. I've trained nobles who quit after 10 minutes. Warriors who cried after 20. You've been at it for 2 hours, bleeding and bruised, and you haven't asked to stop once. Lyria hadn't thought about it. Hadn't realized she could ask to stop. The bed chose you for a reason, Kira continued. Ancient magic doesn't pick weaklings. It picks survivors. She moved back into fighting stance. Now, let's see if you can block my next attack. Lyria barely managed. But she managed. By the time training ended, Lyria could barely walk. She limped back to the Luna's chambers, every muscle screaming, her face a collection of bruises that would purple beautifully by evening. The servants she passed stared openly, some with pity, others with satisfaction, a few with something that looked almost like respect. Let them stare. She'd survived Kira. That was its own kind of victory. Back in her chambers, she found a bath already drawn, steam rising from the water. Beside it, a note in elegant handwriting. For after training. You'll need it. H. Henry. The Alpha had anticipated her pain and prepared for it. Something warm unfurled in Lyria's chest. Not gratitude, exactly. Something deeper. Something dangerous. She pushed the feeling away and sank into the bath with a groan that was half agony, half relief. The hot water stung her scrapes and bruises, but the heat seeped into her muscles, loosening knots she hadn't known existed. For the first time in her life, someone had taken care of her. Not because she'd earned it through service. Not because she'd been useful or obedient or small enough to overlook. Just because she existed. Just because she hurt. Lyria closed her eyes and let herself feel it, this strange, new sensation of being worth protecting. She fell asleep in the bath and woke to find the water cold and night fallen. Cursing, she climbed out, dried off, and pulled on a soft nightgown someone had left on the bed. Her stomach growled, she'd missed dinner entirely. As if summoned by her hunger, a knock sounded at the door. Come in, she called, expecting a servant with food. Alpha Henry entered instead, carrying a tray himself. Lyria froze. Alpha. I didn't, you shouldn't. Relax. He set the tray on the table by the window. I was bringing this up anyway. Figured you'd be too exhausted to come down to the hall. You don't have to bring me food personally. I know. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Eat. Tell me about training. Lyria sat cautiously, her body protesting the movement. The tray held simple fare, bread, cheese, cold meat, fruit. Nothing fancy, but substantial. She ate while Henry watched, his expression unreadable. Kira says you did well, he said finally. Better than expected for a first session. Kira is terrifying. Yes. He smiled slightly. She's also the best warrior I have. If anyone can teach you to survive, it's her. She said the pack is talking about me. They are. Henry didn't try to soften it. Some are angry. Some are curious. Some think I've lost my mind, protecting an Omega who triggered ancient magic. Have you? He leaned back, studying her. I don't know yet. Ask me again when this is over. Lyria set down her bread. Alpha, Henry, why are you really doing this? The protection, the training, all of it. You could have just locked me away somewhere safe. Instead, you're turning me into something else. Because locking you away keeps you safe from external threats, but not from yourself. His eyes held hers. You've spent your entire life being small, Lyria. Invisible. If I lock you in a tower, you're still that girl, still weak, still vulnerable, still waiting for someone else to save her. But if I teach you to fight, to think, to stand on your own. He leaned forward. Then maybe, when the real danger comes, you'll have a chance. What if I don't want to stand on my own? The words slipped out before she could stop them. What if I'm tired of being strong? Henry's expression softened. Then rest. That's what the bed is for, to hold you when you can't hold yourself. But tomorrow, you get back up. You train. You grow. Because the Luna is coming, Lyria. And when she arrives, you need to be ready. He stood, moving toward the door. Wait, Lyria said. In my dream last night, Luna Moonshadow said there were others. Others who don't want her to return. Who are they? Henry paused, his hand on the doorframe. When he spoke, his voice was grim. I have theories. None of them good. He looked back at her. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow. He left, closing the door softly. Lyria sat alone with her half-eaten meal, her bruised body, and her racing thoughts. Luna Moonshadow was coming. Enemies were waiting. And she, an Omega who'd only wanted to rest, had somehow become the bridge between ancient power and the living world. She cleaned up her meal, put away the dishes, and crawled into the Luna's bed. The mattress welcomed her immediately, molding to her shape, pulsing with that gentle blue light. Warmth spread through her aching muscles, soothing the worst of the pain. Thank you, she whispered to the bed, feeling ridiculous. The bed pulsed brighter, almost like it was pleased. Lyria closed her eyes and dreamed of Luna Moonshadow again. The dream garden was more solid this time. The trees had weight and substance. The flowers released actual scent, jasmine and moonbloom and something wild she couldn't name. And Luna Moonshadow herself looked more real, less translucent, as if each passing day brought her closer to life. You're learning, the Luna said, appearing beside Lyria on a stone bench. Kira is teaching you well. You were watching? I'm always watching now. Your eyes are my eyes. Your experiences feed my return. Luna Moonshadow smiled. Every bruise you earn, every lesson you learn, it all helps pull me back from death. That seems invasive. It is. But necessary. The Luna turned to face her fully. Tell me, child. What do you think of the Alpha? Lyria's cheeks heated. He's protective. Kind in his way. Grieving. Yes. Henry carries his mate's death like a stone in his chest. It weighs him down, keeps him tethered to the past. Luna Moonshadow's expression turned thoughtful. But I see the way he looks at you when you're not watching. See how his wolf recognizes something it shouldn't recognize. What do you mean? Nothing yet. But soon. The Luna stood, walking toward the fountain. The bed chose you, Lyria. Not just as a key, but as something more. The magic sees connections mortals miss. Possibilities futures might hold. I don't understand. You will. Luna Moonshadow looked up at the dream sky, where stars swirled in impossible patterns. But first, you need to know about those who oppose my return. The garden darkened. The stars dimmed. And suddenly, Lyria felt cold, a bone-deep chill that had nothing to do with temperature. When I sealed away the darkness 1,000 years ago, Luna Moonshadow said quietly, I didn't destroy it. I couldn't. You can't kill pure malevolence, you can only contain it. So I trapped it beneath stone and earth and wove my own life force into the seal. That's why you died. That's why I slept. death would have been permanent. But sleep? Sleep can be interrupted by the right catalyst at the right time. She turned back to Lyria. The darkness has been dormant all this time, contained by my magic. But as I wake, the seal weakens. And there are those who serve the darkness, who've been waiting for this moment, who want it freed. Who? Some are obvious. Rogues who rejected pack law. Dark mages who crave forbidden power. Old enemies who've nursed grudges across generations. Luna Moonshadow's eyes gleamed. But some hide in plain sight. Wolves who smile and bow while sharpening knives behind their backs. Dread pooled in Lyria's stomach. Someone in the pack. Several someones, I suspect. They'll reveal themselves soon. They have to. You're growing stronger every day, and that terrifies them. The Luna moved closer, her form flickering slightly. Listen carefully, Lyria. When they come, and they will come, trust your instincts. The bed chose you partially because you see things others miss. Because you've spent years being invisible, watching, learning. What am I looking for? Inconsistencies. Lies dressed as concern. Fear masquerading as protection. Luna Moonshadow placed a ghostly hand over Lyria's heart. And trust the Alpha. His ancestor was my mate, the first Alpha, the one who stood beside me when I sealed the darkness. Henry carries that same loyalty in his blood. He won't betray you. The dream began to fade, the garden dissolving like morning mist. Wait, Lyria called. What happens if they stop me? If they break the bridge before you return? Luna Moonshadow's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Then the darkness stays sealed for another 1,000 years. And this kingdom, this pack, falls to ruin without their Luna to guide them. The garden vanished. Lyria woke with a gasp, sitting up in the bed as dawn light crept through the windows. Her heart raced. Sweat dampened her nightgown despite the cool morning air. Someone in the pack wanted her dead. Multiple someones, probably. And she had no idea who they were. Breakfast arrived with the same older servant from before. The woman set down the tray without meeting Lyria's eyes, turned to leave. Wait, Lyria said. The servant paused, her shoulders tensing. What's your name? Lyria asked gently. The woman looked surprised. Mara, miss. Mara. Lyria smiled, trying to project warmth instead of the fear churning in her gut. Thank you for bringing my meals. I know it's extra work. Mara's expression softened slightly. It's no trouble. Alpha's orders. Still. Thank you. Lyria hesitated, then asked, what are they saying about me? The other servants? Mara's face shuddered immediately. I shouldn't. Please. I'm not asking so I can punish anyone. I need to know. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Mara sighed. They say you've bewitched the Alpha. Use dark magic to worm your way into the Luna's chambers. Some think you'll destroy the pack. Others think you're just a fool who'll get yourself killed. What do you think? Mara looked at her, studying Lyria with sharp, assessing eyes. I think you're terrified and trying not to show it. I think ancient magic chose you for reasons none of us understand. And I think... She paused. I think maybe the pack needs shaking up. We've gotten comfortable in our hierarchies, our certainties. Maybe you're here to remind us that power doesn't always come from the places we expect. With that, she left. Lyria sat with those words while she ate, turning them over in her mind. Power doesn't always come from the places we expect. She was an Omega. The lowest rank. The most powerless. But the Luna's bed had chosen her anyway. And maybe, just maybe, that made her more dangerous than anyone realized. She finished breakfast, dressed in her training clothes, and headed to the yard where Kira waited with a grin that promised pain. Ready for day 2? The warrior asked. Lyria squared her shoulders, ignoring her protesting muscles. Ready. Good. Kira tossed her a wooden practice sword. Because today, we're learning offense. Yesterday was about surviving hits. Today, you learn to land them. The blade felt awkward in Lyria's hands. Too heavy. Unbalanced. But she gripped it anyway. Lifted it anyway. And when Kira attacked, she swung back. Missed by a mile, but she swung. And somewhere in the Luna's bed, deep in ancient magic and sleeping power, Luna Moonshadow smiled. Her key was learning to fight. Soon, very soon, it would be time to come home. 3 weeks passed in a blur of training, dreaming, and transformation. Lyria's body changed first. Muscles she hadn't known existed developed beneath her skin, earned through Kira's relentless instruction. Her hands, once soft from cleaning, grew calloused from gripping practice weapons. The bruises became fewer as she learned to block, dodge, and counter. But the physical changes were nothing compared to what shifted inside her. She walked differently now. Head up, shoulders back, meeting eyes instead of avoiding them. The other servants noticed, whispered about it in corners, watched her with expressions that ranged from admiration to resentment. And the dreams grew stronger. Every night, Luna Moonshadow appeared more solid, more real. They talked for hours in that impossible garden, the Luna teaching Lyria about ancient magic, pack history, and the darkness that had been sealed away. With each conversation, Lyria felt something awakening inside herself, not power, exactly, but potential. Like she'd been a seed buried in darkness, finally breaking through soil toward sunlight. "You're almost ready," Luna Moonshadow said one night, her form so solid now that she cast actual shadows. "I can feel it. A few more days, perhaps a week, and the bridge will be complete. I'll be able to cross fully." "And then what?" Lyria asked. They sat by the fountain, watching starlight dance across impossible water. "Then I reclaim my throne. Strengthen the seal on the darkness. Restore balance to the kingdom." The Luna smiled. "And you, my dear Key, will finally rest. Will the bed release me when you return?" "The bed will always hold you, child. You've earned its loyalty." Luna Moonshadow's expression grew serious. "But yes, once I'm back, you'll be free to choose your own path. Stay in the palace, leave if you wish. The magic won't bind you anymore." Freedom. The word felt strange. Foreign. Lyria had never been free. "I don't know what I'd do," she admitted quietly. "I've been an Omega my entire life. Serving is all I know." "Then you'll learn something new." Luna Moonshadow stood, offering her hand. "You've already proven you can become more than what you were. Whatever comes next, you'll face it with the same courage." The dream began to fade, but not before the Luna added one final warning. "Be careful tomorrow. The enemies are moving. They know we're close to completion." Lyria woke with those words echoing in her mind. Tomorrow. Whatever was coming, it was coming tomorrow. Morning arrived with heavy gray clouds and the smell of approaching rain. Lyria dressed for training as usual, pulling on the leather trousers and tunic that felt more natural now than servants' dresses ever had. She braided her hair back, Kira's instruction, to keep it out of her face during combat, and headed to the yard. But Kira wasn't alone. 3 wolves stood with her. Warriors Lyria recognized from the pack Finn, the young one who'd questioned her presence in the Luna's chambers. Garrett, a grizzled veteran with scars crossing his face. And Thorn, the beta's second, known for his strategic mind and quiet intensity. "Morning," Kira said, her expression carefully neutral. "These 3 volunteered to help with today's training. Multiple opponents, you need to learn to handle that." Something felt wrong. Lyria couldn't explain it. The warriors smiled. Kira seemed relaxed. Everything appeared normal. But Luna Moonshadow's warning whispered through her mind, "Be careful. The enemies are moving." "All right," Lyria said slowly, gripping her practice sword. "What do I need to do?" "Simple sparring exercise," Garrett said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "We'll come at you 1 at a time, then 2 at a time. You defend. Nothing serious, just practice." They spread out, surrounding her in a loose circle. Lyria's wolf stirred uneasily. Something was wrong. "Ready?" Kira asked. Before Lyria could answer, Finn attacked. Not with a practice weapon. With a real blade. Lyria dodged on pure instinct, the steel whistling past her ear close enough to feel the wind of its passage. Her heart slammed into her throat as Garrett charged from behind, his sword aimed for her spine. "Kira!" Lyria screamed, rolling sideways. But Kira didn't move. Didn't help. She just stood there, watching with cold, calculating eyes. Understanding crashed over Lyria like freezing water. Traitor. Kira was one of them. One of the enemies Luna Moonshadow had warned about. Nothing personal, Omega, Kira said quietly. But we can't let the first Luna return. She'll restore the old ways, the old laws. Some of us prefer the freedom we've found in her absence. Thorn moved in from the left. You should have stayed in the kitchens. Should have known your place. 3 warriors with real weapons. 1 Omega with a wooden practice sword. Lyria was going to die here. Unless. She thought about Luna Moonshadow's lessons. About the magic sleeping in the bed, in the palace stones, in her own bones now after weeks of dreaming. About how the Luna had said power didn't always come from expected places. Trust your instincts, the Luna had said. The bed chose you because you see things others miss. Lyria looked at her attackers. Really looked. Finn's stance was too wide, overconfident, leaving his right side vulnerable. Garrett favored his left leg, probably an old injury. Thorn gripped his sword too tightly, his knuckles white with tension. And Kira stood too far away, not close enough to strike quickly. They expected her to run. To cower. To die like a helpless Omega who'd forgotten her place. But Lyria wasn't that girl anymore. She'd spent 3 weeks learning to be dangerous. Time to find out if she'd learned well enough. You're right, Lyria said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. I should have known my place. She shifted her grip on the practice sword, settling into the fighting stance Kira herself had taught her. My place is standing, not kneeling. She attacked. Not Finn, who expected it. Not Garrett, who was braced for it. Kira. The warrior's eyes widened in surprise as Lyria charged, wooden sword swinging in an arc that would have made her teacher proud if Kira wasn't currently trying to kill her. The blow connected with Kira's shoulder, not fatal, but hard enough to make the warrior stumble back with a curse. Finn and Garrett rushed in immediately. Lyria ducked under Finn's blade, using his momentum against him, and slammed her practice sword into his knee. The young warrior dropped with a howl. Before Garrett could capitalize, she rolled sideways, putting Finn's body between herself and the veteran warrior. She's better than we thought, Thorn said, circling cautiously. Doesn't matter, Kira snapped, recovering her balance. She's still just 1 Omega. We're trained warriors. Then stop talking and finish it, Garrett growled. They attacked together, all 4 of them, coordinated and deadly. Lyria held them off for exactly 30 seconds before a blade sliced across her ribs. Pain exploded through her side. Blood soaked her tunic, hot and wet. She staggered, her vision blurring. This was it. She'd fought, but it wasn't enough. I'm sorry, she thought desperately, not sure if she was apologizing to Luna Moonshadow or Henry or herself. I tried. Stop this. Now. Henry's voice cracked across the training yard like thunder. Everyone froze. The Alpha stood at the yard's entrance, flanked by Rowan and a dozen loyal warriors. His eyes blazed with fury, actual, visible rage that made the air itself feel heavy. Power rolled off him in waves, pure dominance that forced every wolf present to their knees. Except Lyria. She swayed, but stayed standing, one hand pressed to her bleeding side. Alpha, Kira started. Silence. Henry's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. You dare attack someone under my direct protection? In my own palace. She's corrupting the pack. Garrett spat, blood dripping from where Lyria had hit him. The ancient magic is wrong. It's choosing Omegas over warriors, threatening our structure. Our structure. Henry moved forward slowly, deliberately. You mean the structure where warriors like you abuse your power? Where Omegas work themselves to death and no one notices because they're just servants. He stopped in front of Kira. I trusted you. Made you head of my guard. And I've served loyally for years, Kira said, meeting his eyes despite the dominance crushing down on her. But this bringing back the first Luna, it's madness, Henry. The old ways were brutal. Unforgiving. She'll remake the pack into something we don't recognize. Good, Henry said coldly. Because what we are now clearly needs remaking. He turned to Lyria, his expression shifting from rage to concern. Can you walk? She nodded, though in truth she wasn't sure. The wound in her side burned like fire. Rowan. Arrest them. All 4. Henry's voice hardened. They'll stand trial for treason. You're making a mistake, Thorn said as warriors moved to restrain him. Others feel the same way. This won't end with us. Then they'll face the same consequences. Henry moved to Lyria's side, carefully supporting her. Can you make it to your chambers? I can, she swayed, her legs suddenly unreliable. Henry caught her before she fell, lifting her easily into his arms. Never mind. I'll carry you. The pack will talk, Lyria managed, her head swimming. Let them. He started walking, his warriors clearing a path. I'm done caring what they think. The walk back to the Luna's chambers felt endless. Lyria faded in and out of consciousness, aware only of Henry's steady heartbeat and the warmth of his arms around her. Voices murmured around them, shock, concern, anger, but they seemed distant, unimportant. Finally, blessedly, they reached her room. Henry laid her carefully on the Luna's bed. The mattress responded immediately, that blue light flaring brighter than Lyria had ever seen it. Magic pulsed through her, warm and healing, flowing into the wound at her side. The pain began to fade, replaced by a tingling sensation that felt like being stitched back together by invisible threads. Moon above, Henry breathed, watching the bed work. I've never seen it do that before. It protects its chosen, Lyria whispered, her eyes heavy. Luna Moonshadow told me. The bed won't let me die before she returns. Good. Henry pulled a chair close, sitting beside her. Because I have questions, and I need you alive to answer them. Despite everything, the attack, the blood, the terror, Lyria smiled weakly. Such as how an Omega with 3 weeks of training managed to hold off 4 veteran warriors for as long as you did. Kira was a good teacher. Even when she was planning to kill me. Henry's jaw clenched. I should have seen it. Should have known. No one could have known. Lyria reached out, her hand finding his. They hid it well. Luna Moonshadow warned me enemies were coming, but I didn't know who until they attacked. His hand tightened around hers. It won't happen again. I'll assign new guards. Wolves I trust absolutely. There might not be time. Lyria felt the exhaustion pulling at her, the bed's healing magic requiring rest to complete its work. Luna Moonshadow said we're close. Maybe days away from her return. Then we'll be ready. Henry stood, but didn't release her hand. Sleep, Lyria. I'll watch over you. You don't have to. I know. His expression softened. But I'm going to anyway. Lyria's eyes closed despite her best efforts to keep them open. The bed cradled her gently, magic working through her wounds, pulling her down into healing sleep. Into dreams. Into the garden. Luna Moonshadow was waiting, her form completely solid now. Real. She looked exactly as she must have in life, powerful, beautiful, ancient. You survived, the Luna said, relief clear in her voice. When I felt your pain, I feared. The bed healed me. Lyria looked down at her side. In the dream, no wound existed. And Henry came. He saved me. Of course he did. Luna Moonshadow smiled. The first Alpha's blood recognizes its purpose, to protect the bridge between death and life. Her expression grew serious. But this attack proves we're running out of time. The enemies are desperate. They'll try again, and next time they'll bring more warriors. Then what do? We finish this. Tonight. The Luna moved to the fountain, trailing her fingers through the glowing water. The bridge is complete enough. With the bed's healing magic flowing through you, with your blood spilled in defense of this kingdom, you've proven yourself worthy beyond doubt. Tonight? Fear and excitement warred in Lyria's chest. I'm not sure I'm ready. You're as ready as you'll ever be. Luna Moonshadow turned back to her. When you wake, go to the bed. Lay in it. And call me home. How do I? You'll know. The magic will guide you. The Luna moved closer, taking Lyria's hands. Thank you, child. For your courage. Your sacrifice. For being exactly who you are. What happens to me after you return? That's up to you. Luna Moonshadow squeezed her hands gently. The bed will always welcome you. The palace will always be your home if you want it. And Henry. She smiled knowingly. Well, that's between you and the Alpha. The dream began to dissolve. Wait. Lyria called. What about the darkness? The seal? Luna Moonshadow's voice echoed as the garden faded. First, I return. Then, we face what comes after. Together. Lyria woke to find the room dark. Night had fallen while she slept. Henry still sat in the chair beside her bed, his head bowed, eyes closed. Not sleeping, exactly, more like meditating, staying alert even in rest. Alpha, she whispered. His eyes opened immediately. You're awake. How do you feel? Lyria sat up carefully, checking her side. The wound had healed completely, leaving only a faint pink scar. Better. The bed finished healing me. Good. He stood, moving closer. The healers wanted to examine you, but I didn't want to move you while the bed was working. Thank you. Lyria swung her legs over the edge of the mattress. Henry, I need to do something. Tonight. Now. What? Bring Luna Moonshadow back. She met his eyes. The bridge is complete. Every day we wait gives our enemies more time to plan another attack. We end this tonight. Henry studied her face for a long moment. Are you sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. She stood, her legs steady beneath her. Will you stay? I don't know what's going to happen, and I'd feel better if... I'm not leaving. He said it with such certainty that something in Lyria's chest loosened. Whatever happens, we face it together. Lyria nodded, then moved to the center of the room. The bed pulsed with anticipation, its blue light growing brighter. What do you need me to do? Henry asked. Just be here. Bear witness. Lyria climbed onto the bed, settling into its familiar embrace. Luna Moonshadow said the magic would guide me. The mattress responded immediately, that blue light flaring so bright it filled the entire chamber. Magic rushed through Lyria like a river, powerful and ancient and alive. She gasped as it pulled at something deep inside her, not painful, but intense, like being turned inside out and remade. Words came to her lips, old words in a language she'd never learned but somehow understood. Luna of moonlight, Luna of stars, sleeping queen beyond the veil, I am the bridge, I am the key, I call you home through ancient magic, I call you home through blood and sacrifice, I call you home to reclaim your throne. The bed exploded with light. Blue magic shot through the floor, up the walls, across the ceiling, spreading through the entire palace like wildfire. Every wolf in the kingdom felt it, a pulse of power so vast it drove them to their knees, submission and awe tangled together. In the Luna's chamber, the air itself began to shimmer. A form materialized beside the bed, translucent at first, then growing more solid with each passing second. Long hair that moved like living starlight. Eyes that held the depth of oceans and the cold of winter nights. Power that made the room itself bow in recognition. Luna Moonshadow had returned. She stood tall and regal, exactly as she'd appeared in the dreams, but infinitely more real. Her presence filled the chamber, ancient and commanding and impossibly beautiful. Home, she breathed, her voice echoing with 1,000 memories. After 1,000 years, I'm finally home. Her eyes found Henry, and something like recognition flashed across her face. You carry his blood. My mate's strength. She smiled. He would be proud of the alpha you've become. Henry had dropped to one knee without conscious thought, head bowed. Luna. Rise, Henry Thornridge. You've protected my key with honor. You've earned your place as alpha of this pack. She turned to Lyria, still cradled in the bed's embrace. And you, my brave girl. My perfect bridge. Thank you. Lyria tried to speak, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Using herself as the bridge had drained something essential. Her vision blurred. Rest, Luna Moonshadow said gently. You've done your part. Now let me do mine. The darkness, Lyria managed. The seal is weakened but holding. I'll reinforce it. The Luna's expression hardened. And then I'll deal with those who thought they could prevent my return. She moved to the chamber doors, throwing them open with a gesture. Her voice rang through the palace, carried by magic to every corner. I am Luna Moonshadow, returned from death to reclaim my throne. Those who serve the darkness will face judgment. Those who remain loyal to the pack will be rewarded. And those who harmed my key, her power flared, deadly and beautiful, will learn why the kingdom feared me enough to make me their queen. Through the windows, Lyria could see wolves gathering in the courtyard. Hundreds of them, drawn by the magic, staring up at the Luna's chamber where ancient power blazed like a second moon. Some bowed. Some fled. Some stood frozen, caught between terror and awe. But all of them knew everything had changed. The Luna had returned. The next hours passed in a blur. Luna Moonshadow moved through the palace like a storm, her power absolute and undeniable. She found the conspirators, not just Kira and her 3 accomplices, but a dozen others who'd been working in shadows, planning to prevent her return. They confessed under the weight of her magic, unable to lie in the presence of the kingdom's true queen. Their punishment was swift. Not death, Luna Moonshadow believed in justice, not vengeance, but exile. Stripped of their rank and cast beyond the pack's borders, forbidden to return on pain of execution. Let them see what the world looks like without pack protection, the Luna said coldly, watching them leave. Perhaps they'll learn to appreciate what they tried to destroy. She reinforced the seal on the darkness, traveling to the sacred grove where it had been imprisoned 1,000 years ago. The magic responded to her immediately, settling back into place like it had been waiting for her return. When she emerged, her expression was grim but satisfied. It will hold, she told Henry and Rowan. For another 1,000 years at least, perhaps longer. The darkness is contained. And the pack? Henry asked. How do we move forward? Carefully. Luna Moonshadow looked out over the kingdom she'd founded. I won't erase what you've built. This is your pack now, Henry. But I'll guide it. Teach it to remember the old ways while embracing the new. And I'll ensure that Omegas, that all wolves, regardless of rank, are treated with the dignity they deserve. Her eyes found Lyria, who'd been watching from a distance, still recovering from her role as the bridge. Starting with the one who brought me home. 1 week later, the entire pack gathered in the Great Hall. Lyria stood beside the Alpha's throne, wearing a dress she'd never imagined owning, deep blue silk that matched the Luna's bed, embroidered with silver threads that caught the light like stars. Her hair had been styled by servants who'd once ignored her, braided with moonflowers and crystals. She barely recognized herself. Today, Luna Moonshadow announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "We honor the one who made my return possible." Lyria, who was told she was nothing, proved herself to be everything. The Luna gestured and Lyria stepped forward, her heart hammering. You could have stayed invisible, Luna Moonshadow continued. Could have accepted the role this pack assigned you. Instead, you dared to rest in a forbidden bed. To trust ancient magic. To stand and fight when warriors tried to kill you. She smiled. That kind of courage deserves recognition. She placed her hand on Lyria's head, and magic flowed, not painful, but powerful. I name you Keeper of the Luna's Chamber. Guardian of the Sacred Bed. Advisor to the Alpha. And she paused, her eyes twinkling. Should you ever wish it, my heir? Gasps echoed through the hall. Lyria's eyes widened. Luna, I can't. You can. You will. Perhaps not today, perhaps not for decades. But the magic chose you for a reason, child. And when I'm ready to rest again, when this kingdom needs a new Luna, you'll be ready to wear the crown. She stepped back, leaving Lyria standing alone before hundreds of watching wolves. Henry rose from his throne, moving to stand beside her. His presence steadied her, grounded her. The Luna has spoken, he said, his voice carrying alpha authority. Lyria is under my protection and her guidance. Anyone who challenges this challenges me. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. Anyone want to challenge me? Silence answered. Good. Henry turned to Lyria, and his expression softened. Welcome home, Keeper. Home. Not the servants' quarters. Not the cleaning closets or the kitchens where she'd spent years being invisible. Home. Right here, in the palace that had once been her prison, now transformed into something else entirely. That night, Lyria stood in the Luna's chamber, her chamber now, looking out over the moonlit gardens. A knock sounded at the door. Come in, she called. Henry entered, still wearing his formal clothes from the ceremony, but looking somehow more relaxed than she'd seen him in weeks. Can't sleep, he asked. Too much has happened. My mind won't settle. She turned to face him. Did you know? About Luna Moonshadow naming me her heir. No, but I'm not surprised. He moved to stand beside her at the window. She sees the same thing I see, someone who survived when they should have broken. Someone who became dangerous without losing their kindness. I'm not dangerous. You held off 4 trained warriors with a wooden sword. Henry smiled. You're more dangerous than you think. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the moon climb higher in the sky. Finally, Lyria asked the question that had been burning in her mind. What about you? Now that Luna Moonshadow is back, does this change things between us? Henry turned to face her fully. What things? Don't pretend you don't know. Lyria met his eyes. I've felt it, Henry. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way your wolf recognizes something it shouldn't recognize. And how does my wolf see you? His voice had dropped lower, intimate. Like I'm someone worth protecting. Worth fighting for. She took a breath. Worth loving. Henry's jaw tightened. Lyria, I lost my mate 2 years ago. I swore I'd never. I know. And I'm not asking you to replace her. I'm not asking you to forget what you had. Lyria stepped closer. I'm just saying that maybe, eventually, there could be room for something new. Something different. You're going to be Luna someday, Henry said quietly. You'll outrank me. Rule the kingdom. Maybe. Maybe not. Luna Moonshadow said it might be decades before I'm ready. She took his hand. And until then? We're just Henry and Lyria. The Alpha who learned to see beyond rank. The Omega who learned to stand. Henry looked at their joined hands, then back at her face. I don't know if I'm ready. That's okay. Neither am I. Lyria smiled. But we've got time to figure it out. He squeezed her hand gently. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm learning. She released him, stepping back toward the bed. Go. Your pack needs their alpha rested. And I need to sleep before I fall over. Henry moved to the door but paused before leaving. Lyria? Yes. Thank you. For being brave enough to fall asleep in a forbidden bed. He smiled. Everything good that came after started there. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Lyria stood alone in her chamber, truly hers now, earned through courage and sacrifice and stubborn refusal to stay small. She changed into her nightgown and climbed into the Luna's bed. The mattress welcomed her immediately, molding to her shape, pulsing with gentle approval. We did it, she whispered to the bed. We brought her home. The bed pulsed brighter, pleased. Lyria closed her eyes and let exhaustion claim her. She dreamed of the garden, but this time it was different. Luna Moonshadow walked beside her, solid and real and alive. And behind them, she could see another figure approaching through the trees, tall, strong, with kind eyes and a smile that made her heart skip. Future, the dream seemed to whisper. Possibility. Choice. She didn't have to stay an Omega who cleaned floors. Didn't have to become Luna if she didn't want to. Didn't have to be anything except exactly who she chose to be. And for the first time in her life, Lyria had the freedom to choose. Whatever came next, Luna's guidance, Henry's complicated feelings, the pack's transformation, her own journey toward strength, she would face it the way she'd faced everything else. Standing, not kneeling, with her head up and her heart open. Because the Luna's bed had chosen well. And Lyria was finally beginning to understand why. In the sacred grove, where ancient magic pulsed beneath stone and earth, the seal held firm. The darkness pressed against its bonds, testing, searching for weakness. But Luna Moonshadow's power burned bright, reinforced by a kingdom that had welcomed her home. The darkness would not break free. Not today. Not for 1,000 years. And by then, Lyria would be ready. The key had become the guardian. The bridge had become the destination. The Omega who'd only wanted to rest had become the kingdom's future queen. And somewhere in the palace, in a bed carved from ancient wood and woven with older magic, the Luna's gift pulsed with satisfaction. It had waited centuries for the right soul. And finally, wonderfully, impossibly, it had found her. The end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out.